All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. If you came for the webinar about Mammut growing market share in North America, you're in the right place. We are recording today's session, so know that we'll be sharing it out after the call. Formalities, please feel free to use the chat for any questions that you might have. We'll be monitoring it throughout and trying to address them as we go, and we'll be sure to save time at the end as well. So go ahead and post your questions there. And to jump on in, my name is Becky Little, and I'll be your host today. I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing and Customer Experience here at ExpertVoice. So as you can imagine, I love any opportunity to hear from and learn from a brand, whether it's a great conversation like we're having today with Mammut, or hearing the concerns and questions from curious attendees like yourself. So that's my way of saying, please ask questions, because I love learning right alongside with you. To say the last few months have disrupted the conventional ways that brands build advocacy is an understatement. Now, more than ever, brands have to rely even more heavily on what other people say about them in conversation, on social media, and through their online reviews. Finding and building a community of the right people to build advocacy for your brand can be a challenge, but it's one that Mammut has embraced, and this effort has been paying off with their expanding footprint in North America. In the absence of connecting with people face-to-face, many brands are also asking themselves, how can they build and leverage their pool of advocates to help them through these challenging times? Before we jump in today, I want to just introduce my panel. I'm joined by Matt Ford, our Vice President of Sales for ExpertVoice. And from Mammut, we have David Russo, the Director of Sales for North America. David's been focused on building Mammut's e-commerce business for the last several years, and he's been the point person leading Mammut's relationship with ExpertVoice. Welcome to you both, and thank you for joining us. To set the stage for the conversation David and I will be having today, I've asked Matt to give us a quick overview of ExpertVoice and how we help brands drive consumer sales. I'll turn it over to you, Matt.
Thank you. You can hear me okay?
Sure can.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Becky. I'm happy to be giving an overview of what we do at ExpertVoice to get things kicked off. We started 16 years ago in the outdoor industry under the banner of 3.5, which I'm sure many of you remember, and we have evolved a lot since then. Today, at the heart of what we do is we help brands harness advocacy. That means we get other people talking about your brand and products, making recommendations where it drives your business. We know credible advice helps consumers make better buying decisions. And if you think about the last considered purchase that you made, whether that was a pair of running shoes or a sleeping bag or a rain jacket specifically for a climbing adventure in the Alps, that purchase decision was likely influenced by a recommendation in some form. That could have been advice from a knowledgeable friend and family member, counsel from a credible retail associate, recommendation from an industry professional, or content you found online in the form of a review. Over the last 16 years, ExpertVoice has built a platform and blueprint for helping brands get more of the right people speaking on their behalf, making better recommendations that leads to more full-price consumer purchases. This journey started in the outdoor industry, and over that period of time, we have built a community of over 200 of the best outdoor and sporting goods brands, including Mammut, alongside tens of thousands of retail experts representing the physical retail channel, plus hundreds of thousands of industry professionals, including folks like guides and outfitters, search and rescue, yoga instructors, fitness trainers, and many more. More broadly, we work across several industries with more than 600 brands and 1 million verified, knowledgeable retail sales associates and industry professionals. The ExpertVoice platform helps brands find and engage the right people who influence their customers. Now, we say the word recommendations a lot, and that's because we know recommendations in all forms help a consumer make a better buying decision. And the best recommendations come from real knowledge about a product and real experience using that product and putting them to work where consumers go to seek advice, in retail stores, on e-commerce sites and reviews, from brand ambassadors to pros, and on social media. In short, ExpertVoice is a platform that provides a brand the right tools to find the right people, make their recommendations better, and help you put them to work at pivotal points in the consumer's journey. For example, in e-commerce, experts on the platform are generating more than 8,000 detailed, credible reviews per month. And we give brands the tools to curate these digital recommendations and use them on their own e-commerce sites to help increase conversions and lower returns. In the field, connecting with industry professionals like guides and instructors, those with outsized influence by virtue of what they do. And we work with more and have relationships with more than 3,000 professional organizations across all industries. And of course, in retail, a place where we know an associate that is familiar with and has tried your products is twice as likely to recommend that product to a consumer. And Becky mentioned in the beginning, reaching those associates is more challenging than ever today. And in light of that, ExpertVoice provides an always-on solution to keep your associates engaged. And we continue to see consistent engagement between experts on the platform and the brands they are passionate about. So to make this a little more tangible, I'm excited to hear from David and Becky talk about David's experience with ExpertVoice over the last 4 years to help Mammut build market share, and how David is thinking about our future partnership as we continue to navigate this challenging environment together. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Becky and David.
Thanks, Matt. So as we said, Mammut's been a partner for 4 years now with ExpertVoice, with a simple goal to increase and improve expert recommendations to drive sales across North America. Like any brand, at ExpertVoice, we've also continued to evolve and grow, working to provide one platform where a brand can build advocacy across multiple channels. Wearing my product marketing hat, we've so enjoyed working with Mammut because they've been keen to try new tactics, provide honest feedback, and help us build a better product. Today, I'm excited to let David share his version of that story. So David, before we jump into the details, several of our attendees may not be as familiar with your brand as we are. Can you give us just a quick snapshot of who Mammut is and where you sit in the marketplace?
Yeah, thanks, Becky, and thank Matt for just the opportunity to get to share our story in front of everyone. Mammut here in North America is still relatively a new brand. We came here into the North American market in around 2001, and we did that trying to leverage the heritage that we had as a really strong European brand. So Mammut has been around for a really long time. We started in 1862, so it's one of the few brands in the outdoor space that really can speak to a heritage of about 160 years or so of being in business. And it all started for us making climbing ropes in a small town in the Alps, and that's really evolved into who Mammut was today. So for me and for the whole team in North America, it's been a really fun challenge to try to grow the brand here and to raise that awareness. For us, it's something in recent years that we've really seen to start to catch on, and we've been building on that success. And excited to talk about how we've used ExpertVoice to help us for that goal.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, David. Brian, I think you're advancing our slides, and if you could just jump up to the next slide, please. So as you guys began this march to try and build market share, when did you decide it was the right time to partner with ExpertVoice? How did that play into your strategy? And maybe share with the audience where you guys started with us and what your program looks like now.
Yeah, so right around the time that I joined Mammut North America 3 years ago, we had started working with ExpertVoice, and I had been familiar with ExpertVoice back from when you were 3.5. I come from a background in retail, and I had seen, the success that that ExpertVoice had in terms of creating influence in a retail environment. And so when I came on to steer what we were doing with sort of our direct-to-consumer part of the team, we really looked at, okay, first of all, like, how are we going to get our product in the hands of professionals? We know that they're kind of key influencers in a way, and that was really where the program started with ExpertVoice, where we were available to the professional audience, but we weren't really utilizing it as a tool in retail. So that was one of the first steps we took, is to expand to the full audience. So both speaking to the professional audience as well as the retail audience. And I think for us, it's, in the beginning, we sort of viewed it very much as a solution to pro purchase. For anyone who's been in the outdoor industry for a long time, you're familiar with sort of the old, like, fax in a pro form, you get some kind of employee special and that sort of thing. And that model became pretty dated pretty quickly. And, 3.5 and ExpertVoice, they were really one of the first leaders and a familiar face in providing a digital solution. But I think for us, really what changed was that, ExpertVoice is a lot more than just a pro purchase solution. It's all of the additional tools, all of the data, all of the ways that we get to engage with that audience, both professionally and in retail, that really makes the difference.
Thanks, David. As a former ski instructor, I have lots of memories of actually trying to chase down the rep in the parking lot to get my pro form. So you guys have grown and expanded. You went from pro to retail. And now, as you've built out your education program, you've taken advantage of almost every tool we have in the toolbox. You do quick updates. You've done custom video shoots. You take advantage of promotional media. You run surveys, which that might be Greek to some of our listeners. Can you share just a little bit of details about how you've approached building educational experiences and seeding product to your audience?
Yeah. So, I think in the beginning, we took this very basic approach where we essentially, at the beginning of the season, we would just launch a really basic brand educational content piece and turn over the store for the season. So for us, we had a really basic, here's who we are as a brand. These are the activities we serve. Here's some questions that we want you to answer to show that you've been engaged. And then your reward is that you get to shop this store. And it really wasn't until, I guess, just over a year ago now that, Nate, through the relationship that we have, really started to say, hey, I think we can do a lot more. I think you guys should take advantage of some of the different marketing pieces that we have. And we started to experiment with them. So coming to where we are today, I mean, we've really tested just about everything in terms of, like you said, working with banner placements, working with brand dedicated emails, taking advantage of some of the flash events and sort of more traditional sales promotional pieces. But for me, what's been really interesting to see is how the audience is engaging with content. And I think for any of us who come from a traditional e-commerce or digital background, we know that being top of mind with your consumer and being ever present is super, super important. And so you take this approach with your digital advertising in terms of making sure that, you have a pixel embedded on a website, you're following people around, you're serving them YouTube ads, you're serving them display ads. Why would you not take that same approach to reaching this super influential demographic? And so that's really what we've done. We've looked to increase that cadence at which we're reaching out to people and make sure that we have those constant touch points. And I think for us as well, it's something that is hard to do, is to be humble in that approach and not let your assumptions get the best of you. I think a great example of that was with something like the push notifications on the website. So as part of this sort of media suite that you offer, there's this sort of push notification that goes out to the whole user base's phone to let them know that there's new content or something going on. And for me, I'm someone who finds notifications and push notifications kind of annoying. So I never thought that it would be a successful tactic for us. And it was actually one of the best media pieces that we had that year when we launched it in conjunction with new content. So for me, it's really been a learning in terms of taking a step back and just saying, hey, we're willing to try anything once that ExpertVoice has to offer. And let's find out what can be successful. Let's learn from best practices and really expand upon that.
Awesome. Thanks, David. All of that effort is paying off in terms of, your experts are obviously making recommendations at retail or in the field. But one of the really, I think, cool things about getting to watch your audience is how they produce content inside the platform. And that's in the form of pictures and recommendations, a couple which are featured here on the slide. Last I looked, you guys had 620 products with recommendations and over 2,000 images tagged with your brand. And this is a feature that we've only released in the last couple of years. As a brand, how are you guys using this content and feedback?
Yeah, for us, I think, again, like speaking just in sort of like broader digital commerce or e-commerce terms, like everyone knows the importance of a review, especially a product review. I mean, Amazon's entire business and the way they drive the engine behind that is almost entirely wrapped up in creating a lot of reviews behind a product and creating momentum based on those reviews. And, what we've seen that's different with the recommendations that we're getting through ExpertVoice is these are people who want their opinion to be heard. They want to be interacted with. They're people who use the product day in and day out. And, the credentials they have that allows them to be on the platform, it's creating a much richer experience. And so for me, I use this as really a way that we look at sort of this NPS, Net Promoter Score concept, and really take this feedback to heart. It's a great way that you can not only look at all of the positive things that people are talking about the product, but also look at the detractors and the negative ways and trying to reach out to those people and change their mind or understand why they had a negative experience. I mean, at the end of the day, the people making these recommendations, they're the ones who are like the opinion leaders in their communities, and they're the ones who are steering the buying behavior of their friends, of their clients, of their colleagues. And so why would you not want to make sure that they're always having a positive experience? And, for us, not just the recommendations, but also the photos that everyone is sharing. I mean, we've utilized them for social media ads. We've done, different projects working with the recommendations. We've packaged them up and submitted them to product teams to show them that we have proof of a consistent trend, whether that's around fit of our women's pants or stuff like that. So for me, it's, these are people who have access to buy from a lot of different brands, and a lot of brands are reaching out to them and trying to offer them some incentive to interact with the product. And so if someone is taking the time to leave a really detailed product recommendation for Mammut, that not only means they chose to use our product, but they really want to reach out to us as a brand. And so I think that interaction is really, really valuable for us.
Absolutely. I have to laugh because you're talking about the picked photos, and I was thinking about the next slide here and some of the great content you guys are getting. Your education strategy is paying off because you keep growing this audience inside of ExpertVoice. They're providing you great feedback as a brand to help you know about where you should take your products and what's working and what's not. How is it scaling your reach off platform, like in retail or out in the field or social or elsewhere?
Yeah, so I think, one of the other tools that I really like using on the platform is just being able to see the team affiliation and where these users are coming from. So, this picture that you have on the slide, you have the bio of the person. You can see, are they a retail employee? Are they a pro employee? And also, like, specifically what retailer maybe do they belong to? So for us, we can use it as a way to track the success of some of our field reps or sales reps in terms of, are they clinic and retail? Are the retail staff engaged? Are they coming back onto the platform and going through the education? And we can really look at that. And we know when it comes to retail, like the most important contact for people to make a buying decision is with the retail staff. And so for us, being able to use this platform to reach that staff is really important. And so I think we're looking at the success of what we do with ExpertVoice across all of our channels, because the overall goal at the end is to really build that brand awareness and brand engagement. For us, we know that our product is really like the best form of marketing that we have. And once someone is out there using our product, they're experiencing the brand, that's when they become a great advocate. And so we see that trend in retail, whether it's tracking what's happening within REI, for example, who's a really big key account, I think, for everyone in the industry, or even some of our smaller doors, just looking at, what staff are purchasing, what items are they leaving recommendations on, what are they taking pictures of, what are they really connecting with, and following that trend to what the sales growth is within certain retailers.
Super. And I know when you guys were trying to gauge and measure success and seeing is it going to pay off on the retail floor, we helped to run a study just last year looking at the surveys you guys have been running inside of ExpertVoice to ask experts how likely they were to recommend, and also test them again after they actually engaged with your product and with your content. And the stats spoke for themselves that there was a 28% increase and they're likely to recommend than experts who had not engaged with Mammut. Are you actually seeing this translate out in the real world where experts are out talking about Mammut?
Yeah, I think for sure. I mean, one of the best success stories we have of exactly this is Cody Townsend, who is a really prominent big mountain skier and ski athlete, actually approached us as a brand and said, hey, look, I've gone to all the big mountains around the world. I spend a ton of time skiing in British Columbia, and everywhere I go, every heli outfit, every backcountry lodge, they're using Mammut product and they're telling me that it's the best avalanche safety product on the market. And so I want to be a part of this team. Like, how do I get access to this? I want to come on as an athlete. So I think the reach and the influence that has is even outside of the scope of what we initially thought in terms of the different ways that these recommendations impact our business. So I think for us as well, utilizing the surveys and really getting an understanding of our consumers is super important. I mean, we view this audience on ExpertVoice, especially the professional audience, as like the core of our consumer group. And then everything that they're doing sort of like radiates out to the rest of our consumers. And so for me, I get the most value out of testing things and asking questions and really listening to the voice of these consumers. And, I think for us in surveys, what's been really interesting is, just again, taking away that bias you have as a brand and saying, listen, Mammut, we started as a climbing company. A lot of people still think of us as a climbing company, but we also make great avalanche safety equipment. We make apparel, we make hiking backpacks, we make footwear. So like, who do the professional users consider Mammut? What do they think about when they think about the brand? And, so we've utilized the surveys to ask questions like, is Mammut a hard goods company or a soft goods company? Are we a climbing company or are we a skiing company? And, garnering those responses and learning from how people think about us as a brand is a great way that we can adjust what we're doing in content. We can adjust how we're talking about products. And recently for us, as we've furthered our positioning within safety and really focusing on our safety messaging, it was another great way that we utilized the survey where we asked people, how do you associate with Mammut? We gave them a list of sort of some of our keywords as a brand, whether that's like innovation or performance or heritage. And then we fed safety into that messaging. And we looked at the survey results, and then we did an entire season campaign where we just kept anchoring that safety message throughout everything that we did to come out on the other side and have the exit survey and see if we were actually able to change the opinion of these professionals. And for me, it's like super powerful. If the most experienced, most opinionated people, if you can change their opinion, then it means you're probably doing something right. So that's
And
really
you did,
fun.
and you did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we did see that that swing in the association with safety messaging. So for us, that's again, it's not just the platform in terms of what it's doing to reach pros, but it's all these tools and all these ways that we get to engage that I think for me is where we get the most value.
Well, it's been really fun for us to watch and learn with you and see it really come to fruition. I have just one more slide in the deck, but maybe I'll pause here before we jump in just to see if there's any questions in the chat or if anyone has questions that they'd like to post now, knowing that we're coming close to wrapping up. And I do know that we did have 2 questions submitted through the registration form, so I can start with those. One, there was a question around if you're looking to engage a specific audience. This person happened to ask about nurses or airline pilots. How do you go about doing that? David, I know that nurses and airline pilots might not maybe be someone that you're focused on, but can you maybe share with the audience how you guys have chosen to pursue specific audiences?
Yeah, so I think I briefly mentioned that, one of the sort of aspects of the data that we have is viewing what ExpertVoice has is the sort of like team affiliation with different professional groups as well as with retail groups. And we've really keyed in on certain audiences this way. So for us being, again, a brand who's really steeped in climbing and mountaineering, we knew that the American Alpine Club and the members of that club were probably a great target group for us. So we've been able to, do special promotions and even separate content for that group as someone that we've been able to kind of key in on. And we've done a similar thing with an organization like Knowles through their alumni group and stuff like that. So it allows us to be really targeted, not just, okay, this is a solution for everyone and anyone in retail and everyone and anyone in what you would consider sort of a professional capacity. And it also allows for you, again, to be humble, to take a step back, and instead of thinking about the assumptions you have as to who your audience really is, looking into the data. And, for us, again, like a lot of the military groups were a lot more significant than what we would have normally anticipated. And they were a lot more engaged with our content. And so we've been able to do like military appreciation events and various other things to really speak to the audience specifically. So in that way, yeah, we absolutely have the tools necessary to kind of parse out our audience and speak to pretty specific groups.
Thanks, David. And I think for anyone else out there who is thinking about how do I engage the audience that's most important to me, there's lots of different tools and levers available to you, starting with the ability to actually pull our expert audience to see, like maybe airline pilots isn't an official affiliation, but you could work with your project manager, your ExpertVoice team, to poll the audience to find out who might want to apply for a program and ask them to surface those credentials so we can help identify, a micro group for you. Conversely, lots of ways for you to bring those people into the platform and put them onto, we would call it a team in our internal vernacular, so that you could talk to them specifically. I had a question come in via chat. Has this content marketing had a noticeable impact on brand loyalty, or more so recommendations, increased usage for specific products? So I don't know if you can speak to that, David, if you've been able to track brand loyalty.
Yeah, so I think, obviously with the brand loyalty piece, we can certainly look at through the expert profiles, we have access to see what purchases people have made and specifically what products. So we can certainly see the people who have come back and bought multiple products from us on the platform. But I think looking at the recommendations, what we can see from a trend standpoint is our best-selling products in market are also the products that have the most recommendations and the most positive recommendations. And as well, a product where maybe we've had to make a slight development tweak, like, we can own up to mistakes we've made. We had an amazing down jacket that we loved, and the face fabric was a lot thinner than it probably should have been for the product, and we had an issue with people tearing them a little bit too easily, and we got that feedback in retail, and it reflected what we saw in feedback on ExpertVoice as well. So we definitely see those trends are connected, but I would say overall, what's interesting for me is if you follow the retail trends, you can see what items retail staff are purchasing and what items we're selling in retail. And there's almost always a correlation in between the two.
Thanks, David. And adding on there, we're able to track data from our experts to see, what percentage of your users that are coming and purchasing. Are they new or are they returning? So you can see, are they just one and done, or are they people that have come back over time? And depending on your brand, that cycle might be every 6 weeks. It might be every 6 months. It might be every year, but we're happy to help you with that analysis. If that hasn't answered your question, please let me know. There was another question around how to maximize social interaction from pro groups or professionals. David, I know social isn't the area you've been focused mostly on e-commerce, but I don't know if there's anything you want to add there. I'm happy to add my color.
Yeah, for us as well, I think, through that, the tool you have, the Advocacy platform, you have, in a way, social interactions in terms of professional user groups leaving photos and tagging those photos with the brand. And, what we've seen through our own social media efforts and through what we have on ExpertVoice, the willingness that people have to share and also that desire to interact with people, I think there's a lot of similarities that you can draw. So I think most brands now know in a social media capacity, if someone takes the time to tag your brand and share this great photo, just even a reaching out or a liking of that photo goes a long way to make that person feel special. And so we try to take a similar approach to how people are interacting with us on ExpertVoice and sharing content. And so it's been really great to also be able to interact with professionals in that way, where anyone who leaves a recommendation, you can comment on that recommendation as a brand. You can like the recommendation, you can like the photo that they've left. And so to me, there's a lot of similarities there. I don't know if I can really speak to like the effort we're doing on ExpertVoice and how that's grown the professional amount of interactions we've had, but I think it's a concept that we look at for sure with the platform.
Well, and hopefully in the very near future, we will be able to help you with that more, because looking down the road at where ExpertVoice is going, we're just later this year working on starting to beta test the ability for brands to build their own communities and be able to charge them with certain missions and campaigns, such as going to post on social and then being able to track that performance. So lots of tools and exciting things to come in that arena. Matt, Brian, have we seen any other questions come in through the other channels?
Nope. I think a couple of great comments. One, a comment about John Koppel's beard, which is great. It's a wonderful beard to look at on camera. And another was just happy for the Knowles shout out, a proud alum that made a comment. So.
Perfect. Well, I just got a message privately saying that the answers have been great, but that they would love if there's, do you see any similar feedback on pros or cons of products on ExpertVoice and in the general population? So we're experts mimicking what the general population is saying. And then a question that I'm happy to answer about if brands do any concept testing on ExpertVoice. David, I don't know if, can you speak to, I think you have covered that a little bit about what experts are saying and what the general population is saying. I don't know if you're following that more closely or anything else you want to add there.
Yeah, I think for sure, in terms of pros and cons, like we Yeah, it's similar to what I mentioned before. We see the trends being really similar in terms of the feedback we get in the field versus the feedback we get from experts. I'd say on ExpertVoice, the feedback tends to be a lot more detailed. So again, for me, like coming from a traditional econ background, you have a return process, and someone returns a pair of pants, they say didn't fit. And if you follow up with them, like maybe you get to dig a little bit deeper, but for the most part, that's sort of like the only feedback that you get. And on ExpertVoice, we would have the same product where the person would maybe make a comment about the fit, but instead they would say things like, I really wanted to love these pants, but the hip measurement didn't really match the waist measurement, and it's a backcountry skiing pant, and I felt like I didn't have the freedom of movement I was looking for. And they give you a lot more detail into how you can actually take something away from that. So I would say not only do we see similar trends, but I would say actually on ExpertVoice, we tend to get more detailed feedback than I would from just like consumers in the field. But other than that, I mean, our like best-selling climbing rope for a really long time, the Infinity rope, I think we have something like over 100 recommendations on ExpertVoice, and every single one of them is super positive, and that's been a similar experience that we've had in the field, and same with a product like our Berry Box beacons, and so I do tend to see similar trends between people's comments in the field and what we see on ExpertVoice.
Thanks, David. And in terms of brands doing concept testing, this is something we have done with a handful of brands, and something that we actually will be looking to roll out as a formal offering to any of our partners. And we're actually currently looking for a couple of good, strong beta candidates this fall that will allow brands to hone in on who's that hyper-targeted group that you want out testing your product, whether it's before it comes to market or you're trying to gather some great momentum as you bring it to market, and then be able to gather their feedback, gather their photos, and then have those ready when you bring your product out to market. And also the ability to be able to maybe hide some of that so it's not public until you're ready to have it public. Or as we talked about, the social aspect of being able to build communities that you could have a relationship with. This is something Dave and I have talked a lot about, the need for a brand to get critical feedback from people in a closed circle, where experts, sometimes we worry, are they afraid to say anything negative against a brand because they're just so excited to be a part of this community, and to provide a forum where they can provide some critical feedback and input for a brand.
Yeah, I think touching on that as well, we certainly haven't done any concept testing in terms of like a prototyping level like phase, but in terms of like testing product that we've already developed and just positioning that and how we think it might be successful, or it might resonate, or it might not resonate. We've used the templated lessons on ExpertVoice to do something like that, where the templated lessons are kind of focused on like a specific product for us usually. And so, we'll promote a new ski jacket that we just added to the collection, where we're not sure if it can outpace some of our best sellers or where it fits into the collection as a whole. And what we've generally seen is that if we highlight a specific product in one of those educational content lessons, we tend to see traction behind that in sales as well. So the sort of like tie-in between marketing a specific product to an audience, and then actually getting that audience to convert on that, and then they're out there recommending that product and putting it into the field. We saw some pretty good success with our new ski hard shells last fall with the Hall de Gras when we did that.
Awesome. All right, well, I know we're coming up on time, so we'll bring up our kind of just last, what's the future bringing? Because we know the state of retail and consumer purchasing is just going to continue to be a moving target as we navigate COVID-19. As you look to the rest of the year, where is Mammut focused for 2020?
Yeah, I think a lot of businesses, we've had to make, some tough decisions as we adapt to the craziness that 2020 has been across the board, whether that's, through closures of our brick and mortar partners, and more of that business moving online, or just how we reach certain audiences, how we position ourselves as a brand. And so for us, I do think that trend of seeing more and more business move digital is something that we've also experienced. I think it's really expedited the process for some of our smaller brick and mortar partners to really think about the digital aspects of their business. And I think now more than ever, people are realizing that you need ways to reach consumers digitally, because you're not able to have reps go into stores and clinic and do all the things that they're used to doing. You're not able to host events and host tastings or have people gather in large groups. And so you have to come up with new ways to engage with people. And you have more people on their phones, on their computers, and like looking at social media. So the opportunity is there, but there's also more content than there's ever been. And so I think like looking at a channel like ExpertVoice and how we reach pros and how we reach retail employees, it's the focus that we can create and sort of like the targeted approach that I see value in for us moving forward. And then I think as well, we talked a lot about these recommendations. For us, we're looking at how we can utilize those recommendations more and more on what we do on our own e-commerce website and other places to really leverage the work that we're doing on this platform and bring it to the other parts of our business. We're also looking at that with wholesale partners as well, who have really robust kind of review and content-based aspects of their website. But again, I think the recommendations, the quality of the recommendations, the credentials that they come with, coming from ExpertVoice, it brings it to a whole new level.
Well, we are excited to see you continue to grow and see how the digital world treats you, along with many of the rest of our partners in 2020. David, thank you so much for your time. Thank you to the rest of you for attending. As I mentioned, we'll be sending out a link so you can download and or view a copy of this later or share it elsewhere as needed. And with that, we'll wish you all a great rest of your Tuesday. Thanks again for joining us.